Hi, I'm Chris Palmer. Welcome to Graduate Space Radio. I've got a new friend, Mark White, who's in London. He has a company called Run Grateful, and his assistant Liz was nice enough to reach out to me. So I'm going to bring Mark in, and we'll get Jazz in here. How you doing, Mark?
Hi, I'm okay.
I'm
Thank you.
good, man. Yeah,
Yes.
glad you could be here today, man. Great gratitude guys hanging out. That's it's a gratitude meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, what a way to spend a bit of time, eh? I can think of worse ways anyway. So, yeah,
Oh,
happy to
that's
have
for
this chat.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Mark, if you could share a little bit about yourself, then we can start talking about your different companies and how you came upon where the idea of Run Grateful come. I know it started with you starting other communities, so
hmm
let's leave the floor open to you on that.
Yeah. There's a bit of a journey leading up to where I am today, as with most people. But yeah, the ABCs of who I am and where I'm from. 37, father of two, got two teenage daughters, soon to be 14 and one soon to be 16. So yeah, knee deep in the teenage years. Married 15 years to Michelle. Love running, love creating things. And yeah, just following my curiosity in life, really. So yeah, that's the ABCs. And as you've alluded to, I'm from the UK.
Very nice. Well, I know it. I was looking at your bio, obviously, and it says you initially started with the first community you started was I'm sorry, I had it right here in front of me. Where's it at? Where's
Your
that?
town?
Where's that? Where's that? Your town. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So how
right.
explain to me? I had two bios here, and I don't know where the other one went. But explain to me. Obviously everything's a iteration leading to where you are now. But how did your town start, and then obviously the steps that led you to come into gratitude, being part of this Run Gratitude program?
Yeah, well, your town's obviously a huge part of my life, and it's one of them scenarios which I can probably describe best as my little baby. It's where a lot of things started for me. It was yeah, alongside what was happening and what was being created, under the Your Town umbrella was my own kind of personal journey with it. It was my first steps into, just that creative process and seeing what I was capable of and seeing what I could make happen, and yeah, just building something, whether it be a brand, a community, whatever way you want to position it. So Your Town was founded back in 2014. It
Mm-hmm.
was hyper local to my local town, where I was from, and the community that I was part of, and it was just my way of contributing, really, to where I live and playing my part in making it the best place it could potentially, could possibly be. There's lots of conversations that are kind of that we are part of, whether that be town centre vibrancy and kind of the development around, the local town centre and kind of how we engage with it and how we use it and how it's being reshaped for the future compared to kind of, how it used to be used for. So that's like a big worldwide conversation, not just in my little old town. And yeah, then kind of away from that, kind of just seeing what we could do around the inactivity and obesity conversation and trying to get people more active more often and more kind of connected with each other through movement. And yeah, listen, with everything that I do, which obviously we're going to talk about a couple of things in particular, but in the fabric of all of it is that kind of community element about, how we relate, how we identify with each other, what we can do, what we in control of, how can we take responsibility and, with our next steps, and instead of maybe complaining about who should do what, when, and how things could be done or should be done, what can we do? As long as we're bringing something positive to the party and, trying to uplift people and help people rise, then yeah, that's what we want to be part of. So, Your Town is absolutely what that represents, and we do stuff in primary schools, and then we've kind of created these communities away from our hometown now, so other places in the UK are getting involved in some of what we do, and yeah, as you've alluded to as well, that's led on to other projects with similar mindset, similar ways of thinking and being within them also.
That's beautiful. So have you been a fitness guy your entire life, or is this something that popped up in the last 10 years, or, to be this active, the guy you are that brings in Your Town, and obviously something is, it's like Run Grateful. I mean, obviously did that start maybe with your, in high school, or maybe your parents, or where does that come from in your life?
Well, I suppose the spark was a good friend of mine. You know,
Hmm.
I can kind of take it back to that point in time, around about 2010. So, you know, not a great deal of time considering, yeah, you know, like I'm pushing late 30s now. So, but yeah, so the last 10 years have just been a journey in itself with my relationship with fitness. But, you know, historically, my you know, my history with fitness and things of that nature, you know, it wasn't too consistent throughout my kind of school years. I kind of flirted with it, you know, did a little bit of rugby and bits and pieces, but you know, I was never, you know, the relationship with it was never strong. You know, that bond was never kind of concrete. You know, it never kind of grabbed my attention and etc. I enjoyed it, and obviously I had fun, and you know took part in some team sports, etc. So there's some some positive experiences to draw from. And then things went a bit wonky for me. I went in a new direction with exploring other things that life had on offer,
As we do.
which kind of led me down a bit of a wonky path, for want of a better word. But yeah, I come out of that period of time, which is quite dark. I'm not going to lie, and yeah, learned some lessons and kind of just chose a new direction. And then fast forward a few years, still, in between, I've become a father and a husband, etc. But yeah, fast forward to 2010, gave up mobile lights. A good friend of mine had better experiences than me when it comes to fitness and moving the body and the value that brings to you physically and mentally and all that kind of stuff. And I trusted this man, and I really wanted to give up cigarettes. That was kind of like the last thing to go. And yeah, just the way he described it and positioned it to me was very attractive and inspiring. And he suggested that running in particular one day would feel like walking if I was consistent with it, and kind of just kept with it. And that sounded like something worth fighting for. So as soon as he said that, my mind shifted in that direction, and I haven't looked back since. And everything that I've described from your town, and what we're going to talk about around Grateful is a consequence of starting to run, because it's just unearthed a whole new world for me, and one which I'm very happy about, and one that I'm very passionate about staying around. So yeah, love running, love fitness, love what it brings, and over the years away from running, I've learned different tools and different activities that I've taken part in that have brought real value, to who I am and where I'm going, and how I support myself physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Thanks for sharing all that. Recently I've been thinking a lot about, scars in our past, and how, these different things, they make us who we are, right? We get to see either we did something that, we oh, that's not who I want to be, or we had an experience and realized, and when you were speaking earlier, you said, you went through some dark times to get to where you are. I'm all, when I hear things like that, because obviously I've got my own stories too. I'm always curious. Not necessarily if you don't want to share what those dark times were, but what were some of the lessons, you look back and go, this is what I learned from, I'm speaking almost even, right now I've got a second book coming out called Dear 2020. And I had people basically look back at last year and give perspective. Right. So it's like,
Okay.
Obviously it's not all good, but it's not all bad. What came out, what do you want to remember from it? What do you not want to repeat, or what kind of lessons were learned? So when you say, when you said, some dark times, I just, obviously you're in a your peak, your physical conditions peak right now. You're motivating all these people. You've got this, obviously you're in a grateful state, which is awesome. And that's obviously you had to come out of that to be who you are. You know what I mean? It's like,
Absolutely.
we're all who we are today because of every day we lived. And I love talking to people like yourself, because we go, if we're in a grateful state right now, we can look back and go, it's all okay. The good and the bad and the ugly and the good,
Yep.
it's like, it's all okay because here I am. So when you said, dark times, I'm just kind of curious again, what little or more you want to share. I'm just kind of curious what you came out of that, like maybe some lessons you learned. I'm just curious. And if you don't want to share, that's completely cool too.
No, that's fine. Listen, subconsciously I brought it up, so I understand that might have provoked a thought in you to go a bit deeper into that. So that's fine. Listen, I've done enough work over the years, and got vulnerable enough times with enough people and enough places to kind of get acceptance you know, around, as you mentioned, what has been and shaped who I am, etc. So, yeah, there's no judgment on my part there with, you know, some of what I've got up to, or you know, there's definitely no guilt or shame or things like that attached to it no more. Which, you know, as I was coming out of these dark times, as I explained them, you know, that was obviously never the case once upon a time. You know, I was full of dread and fear and insecurities, and, you know, inadequate and you know, all things like that, you know. So, you know, it was yeah, definitely not the happiest time of my life. My late teens in particular was kind of definitely a crossroads type scenario, you know, largely through addiction and things like that. And but yeah, like I said, there come a point in time when I had a decision to make. I didn't feel like I had many choices at that time because of the state of mind that I was in. But, you know, that was a lie. And once I kind of got some guidance and some support, and, you know, the right people in the right places were there to pick me up when I needed it. And yeah, I you know, I saw that I did have a choice, and that choice was to go in a new direction, as I alluded to. And so, yeah, you know, the lessons learned is I had to grow up, I had to be responsible, I had to take responsibility, and yeah, just kind of embrace the good and the bad. As you mentioned, life isn't always amazing all the time. So I had to kind of acknowledge that it's okay to feel sad and it's okay to feel insecure and things like that. And just to kind of get a grasp on what that meant for me and how I could manage them emotions and them expectations, and started to get some tools into place and some kind of, you know, some habits, some positive habits, gratitude obviously being one of them, which is huge. Played a huge part in me being where I am today. And so, yeah, it was kind of just having that time and that space to sift through some of the denial and some of that blame and some of that resentment that I might have had. And you know, to kind of just is not healthy. You know, if that's all you consume and that's all you believe, then yeah, it's going to be pretty dark. But, you know, waking up the spirit in me and the good in me, and yeah, giving that a bit of light, kind of suggests that you can go in a new direction, and there's hope, and there's a life worth living, and, you know, and you can go out into life and, yeah, have fun and contribute and see what you can do, see what impact you can have in a positive way, as opposed to feeling like you're taking all the time and you don't really want to be here because it's not that great, you know. So yeah, glass half full now.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot lately. You know, to talk with people. I love what you said. It's like we're going to feel sad. You're going to be upset. You're going to feel hurt. These are all true emotions, and there's nothing wrong with these emotions. And the problem is, if people lock out those emotions, they basically are like turning off the nozzle, where you're not going to feel happiness or joy, because you're basically like, I'm shutting down. I'm going to stop the car. We're not going to move anymore. Where, you know, life is an ever flow, like you said. It's an up and down. You know, it's you know, I can't remember the lady's name, and I think I may have mentioned, we talked a couple weeks ago. I was like, if you're wanting a life where you have absolutely no trouble, no heartache, no fear, no all this stuff, it's like you're basically talking about being dead. Like, if your heart's beating, you're going to have a spectrum. There is a spectrum of emotions and things that are just going to happen that are some in you control, some are not. But it's important to know that, you know, things are temporary. You know, that whatever you're feeling isn't this isn't life forever. I remember being very down, and somebody just looking at me going, "Well, you know, this isn't you know, this is temporary." You know, feelings are very temporary, and unfortunately, when we get so caught in our head, and we can't pivot our minds to say things like we're grateful for, we start thinking this is life, and life sucks, you know. But that's not the truth, because things every day can be a new beginning. Every moment could be a new moment. It's really, you know, I think with me, gratitude helps ground me in realizing it allows me to pivot. It gives me a pivot point if I choose to go in the moment. Okay, well, this isn't working, but, you know, I could go two ways with that. I could go, well, this is working, or I could go, well, I'm glad that's not happening. Like, there's like an up and down. There's a decision you have to make. And I love, you know, so with me, it's like when things aren't working, it's my friend and I were talking about, it's like radical gratitude. It's like when you start to get in a position where you're like, obviously things out of our control are going to suck, not going to be happy, but how quick can we get to the moment to go, well, at least that didn't happen? Or, you know, this is still working for me. That's that whole thing of like, this is temporary. Whatever I'm thinking about is a temporary thing. It's not my life. It's like everything, your heart's still beating, right? Yeah. I can still see I was talking to a physician. He's like, it's like a gratitude health checklist. Like if you want to start thinking, if you want to reach into yourself, you could go, well, my lungs work. My eyesight works, I can feel my dexterity in my hands, when you think about, and that's pivoting into where, Run Grateful, which I told you when we first talked. I love that you're putting together, gratitude in this physical form with connection, with human connection. So you've got so many great things, because if bottom line, if somebody can just get out and walk, there's a lot of gratitude just in that action, right? Just think about 100%, that, right? Just absolutely. By yourself, like I think about, I love my father so much, and he's 72, but when you see people, obviously when you see people and they have problems walking, they have pain, like if you can just get up and you can go take a walk, man, you've got so much. There's, you know what I mean? Like there's a stack of gratitude just happening just because you get to do it, right? So it's like, go gratitude checklist. Okay, here we go. My legs work, I can put my socks and shoes on. I can go downstairs. I'm healthy enough. I can move, the air. I've got the clothing that allows me to be out in the space. There's air. I can feel the air on my face. My lungs are working. Sight, right? You're seeing, you just the movement. There's so many things working, right? And that's what I love. That's why it's like you take gratitude, literally like gratitude checklist with the body, like with activities, but then which is awesome. But then it's like, what if we bring other people involved, right? So think how much exponentially better. I go for a walk by myself. That's great, right? But if I go a walk with my wife yesterday, that's more than times two. You know what I mean? It really is. Like when you bring somebody else, now you're in this shared experience. I was sharing earlier, it's like, when you're with somebody, you're more present, right? So it's like, I'm not in my head because I'm with somebody. At least you'd hope that you could be present more because you're engaging with somebody. And then you're going to enjoy these moments. Like yesterday, I was even talking to her. It's like, we stopped by the water and like just watched these ducks, right? And I probably would never have I wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for her, right? We wouldn't have stopped if it wasn't for her. But then we're watching these ducks dip in and like their legs, this comical action, right? But it was just because we were together. And we weren't in a hurry, and we were just enjoying being out in nature, And so it's a powerful thing. So I know I'm just kind of ranting on how awesome all these components you're putting together, but I would love to hear how you went from your town to where did the Run Grateful, where did that share with me that nugget and how where that's obviously that was initially something very small, but now it's become this massive thing.
Yeah, it's one of them, I suppose. I believe kind of in this way. Well, I think in this way anyway, because for me, like, what's the alternative? But kind of it's all meant to be, and so with that lens, just kind of things happen for a reason, and unfortunately, what has happened, with the pandemic, etc. And the reason why I bring that up is it kind of just put a standstill to all of the Your Town activity. We were fundamentally offline, an offline community interest company, and promoted everything offline, and with events and gatherings and the lessons in primary schools, etc. So when all that kind of got postponed and shut down, and we were told that kind of all offline activity is off, I just subconsciously that freed my mind up. I like to manage that accordingly as well, because we had commitments, etc., and relationships that you just had to adapt to. Everyone was in the same boat, so kind of we're all having a similar conversation. But that freed up my mind, and running and being grateful, and that connection is something that I've introduced into my running journey a little while ago, a few years ago. So it wasn't necessarily new to me. As mindful running and things like that isn't new to the world, lots of people get up to various things. But yeah, as you mentioned, that kind of gratitude and movement thing isn't something you hear too much of. And I took part in this challenge. A good friend of mine, Danny, who's part of our Your Town runners community, he made me aware of this running challenge where this guy called Bo in Australia, a YouTube guy, very funny, very creative. He done this mile on the hour every hour for 24 hours. So that was quite quirky, and I love that format, and I love that way of doing it. And I thought, okay, that's cool. So I'll entertain that, and I did it. But my stance on it was where Bo took on tasks in between each run, in between each mile. So I just attached each mile to gratitude and jumped to my social media, shared about an experience or a person I was grateful for, and then I went off my mile. I come back, I did the same thing, and so 24 pieces of gratitude there, 24 stories. Wow. 24 things that people could read and can kind of go on that little journey with me, and without even realizing it really. And I just had an amazing day full of gratitude and just feeling, that deep connection with it, which was just incredible to have from my own personal experience. But then, to have other people kind of message me and get in touch and thank me and say that it's really provoked thoughts within them, etc. I just felt if there's an opportunity here to kind of open this experience up for others, what would that look like? What could we call it? So I just come up with the name Run Grateful, and to be more inclusive, because 24-hour running isn't for everybody, I would just open it up as like an invitation to a grateful mile. So no matter where you are or kind of what your circumstance, and as you've already alluded to, if you're lucky enough to be able to move in that way, then, go and walk or run a grateful mile. Tag us in, tell us what you're grateful for, and we can maybe build this connection around the world, or this web of gratitude through movement. And yes, 9 months in, we're doing it. We've got loads of countries from around the world involved. We do these themed weekends. We've got another one coming up on Saturday and Sunday, actually. We've done these offline events around the 24-hour experience. And we've just created these workshops for young adults and primary schools centered around gratitude work and the mile. And yeah, mate, it's just chuffed. It's going really, really well. And I'm really excited about the impact it's having and the work that we can hopefully do in the future.
Oh man, I love that. There was so much good stuff there. And wow. So let me step back. I wanted to speak to initially when you were saying, you had to do, you couldn't go, you had to go online because you couldn't get events. And I've talked with, just my experience alone. So, I have a friend named Chris Shimbra, and he would do these gratitude dinners. And he did those for years, I think, in person, and he would move and do them for companies. But because the pandemic hit, he started doing them online. He realized that this concept of gratitude and people sharing online worked. And it was out of like, oh, we can't travel anymore. We can't have people come over. Like it was a necessity of that opening up the mind going, okay, well, I've exactly like you said, what can I do? If we can't do this, what can we do? He started doing them online and through Zoom. And that's how I met him, because he came on a podcast and I heard about this and I was like, I got to go check this out. Right. People are getting online and sharing what they're grateful for. I had experience it. And then I go and I experience it and I go, wow. I'm like, I just shared with strangers, had a grateful moment online. Like, wow. It's almost like if I hadn't experienced that, I wouldn't have believed it would happen. Like I just couldn't, it's almost like breaking through that wall. Like, hold on, you can do this by yourself, staring at a computer. Like, wow, that's gratitude magic, man. It's like, it really is. It's great. It's this gratitude magic. And I'm stating that because, even in my same situation, because that happened, I met so many people last year. I wrote my book, I started the podcast. These were all things because life slowed down. You know what I mean? It's like I have a production background, and basically all the theater, concert, and convention work. March. I remember in March we had set up for a music festival at the theater. They were rehearsing the second day, and they got a call in, and it's like, all right, put it all away. City's locking down, and that's last March,
big stuff.
But so it's like, but like we're saying, like these. I think about the situation, and I've met so many people and had so many experiences. Like I'm talking, we wouldn't be talking right now.
No.
If specifically, like, and I can pinpoint so many relationships and so many moments that specifically occurred because of the scenario. And it's back to perspective, and we get to decide what it all means. It's a scenario. It's like, it's only good or bad if we say it is, and elements can obviously, things bad can happen to us in that scenario, but is it, in this, we're speaking to the positive benefits of of locking it, of slowing down, of things having to stop, like having to pivot, and then these relationships. And I love that you like, that's, your mind, you're like, what can I do? And then you decide, you see somebody else doing something, you go, I'm going to do this. And I love the idea that you took 24 hours, you yourself, right? You did the experience and shared shared gratitude for 24 different people, and showed the way, man. That's really powerful. And now when you're speaking about like people around the country doing that, man, that's amazing, man. That's so beautiful.
No,
I mean, like, dude, I'm feeling you, man.
No, and I do, part of gratitude work, I suppose, is, is taking that moment in time to, sit and reflect and kind of acknowledge kind of where you are and what's happened and how you got there, etc. But yeah, even like listening to you there, I'm just like, like a lot's happened. Like I'm grateful for it because, as we all know, one day rolls into another day, and albeit, the world has been very different this last year. It sounds like it's been within both of our natures that, just we're proactive, so yes, things have slowed down and, we're managing the moments with it, but ultimately I've kept busy, so yes, it's to acknowledge, the fact of how great it has been and, the stories that we've heard and people have shared with us, with their gratitude has just been incredible, mate. And as you've mentioned, it's fuel, and I just want to carry it on. I just want to see it blossom and grow and kind of impact more people and bring awareness to what gratitude is and what it can be for you and kind of how you can tap into it and practice it and introduce it and, do it with your runs or your walk. I just want to really just spread it far and wide. And so, long may it continue because, the last 9 months, as we've just kind of spoken about, has been, very positive. And yeah, people are enjoying what we do, and just how what it means to them, because like runners, if you want to call them that, or walkers or whatever, for them to be invited to maybe use that time while they're out, to focus on a bit of gratitude for at least one of them miles is something new to some, and so they just love the thought about it, the thought of it, and think, okay, yeah, I'll do that, and then they do it, and then they feed back to say, cool, that was great. I'll do that again, and then you're like, yes, like they're on board. Like they've had that feeling that you get from gratitude, like you speak so passionately about it, also because that is on offer for everybody, no matter what the circumstance. And I obviously don't say that literally. I really do understand that life for some is very difficult, and and as you've brought up earlier in the conversation, sometimes it is stripping it back to basics, and that I can move in this way, or I've got lungs in my that I can breathe from, and I'm really stripping it back. And if that's what you've got, if that's your starting point, then crack on, because that's a good place to start from.
For sure, man. I obviously I'm a big advocate of gratitude, but at the same time, I'd never want to do toxic gratitude, where I would never want to tell somebody that they need to be grateful, because then you just put you're putting the stench on it. And unfortunately, some people feel that. But I just I talk to people and I'm like, what, let's break down. How are we grateful for the everyday? It's the mind. Unfortunately, the mind. The thing is, you want to get a new car. You get the new car, and then 2 weeks later, you want something else, or you forgot. Yes. It's like the sparkle goes away from it so quick. So it's like I've been working on myself, daily to go, okay, what's in my everyday life? How can I trigger these things that are big deals, not to forget them, and I've been sharing recently with a lot of people. It's like, my wife, she's from South America, and we were living, dating long distance for over 4 years. There were 100, years worth of days where every night I would be going to sleep on the phone saying good night to her. But now she's here, right? And we're married, which is awesome, right? But I don't want to forget how, because she's here, I don't want to forget how special it is that she's here. So the only way you can, now it's not easy to appreciate the everyday. It's not, it takes work. It doesn't take a lot of work, but you have to have intention, right? So it's like in my morning, I write down Rosio, remember, because I just want to remind myself that it's good. You know what I mean? And the same thing, that same idea is like to remind yourself, I have water coming in the home, because for me and you, like, I'm sure we've always had electricity. We lived in houses. We've always had food, right? These things that 80% of it's not a given for 80% of the world. It's like,
Yeah.
if you're waking up with running water, like you're really ahead of the freaking game. Just that by itself, and when you're born into it, unfortunately, it feels like a privilege where it's something to go, thank you. So it's like I'm working like that's going back to like we were talking about just the waking up. I think, if you can go, if you look at the day as a gift, right? If you can wake up and go, I get to, I look out, even if the sun doesn't shine, I go, I get to see the show. Today's the show. I got to wake up for the show. Right now I'm looking outside. The show is a rainy show, but that's okay. It's these little things, but I love that you're taking something as simplistic as exercise and that you've built this community, you've added gratitude. So it's like, I feel like people want, I feel like everybody wants to share what they're grateful for. I just don't think people ask them. I don't think there's triggers for it. And what you're doing is you're tying a natural emotion of gratitude with exercise, which your people are doing, and you're making it simpatico. And that's just across the board so powerful. You're building in a trigger, you know what I mean? You're building in a trigger. So for me, my gratitude journal is a trigger in the morning. If somebody's going for if they're going for a run or doing exercise, you're basically simpaticoing these, you're sandwiching these two emotions. It's brilliant, man. And you're getting, and on top of that, not only are you sandwiching, you're encouraging people to share that experience. Which to me, like that's exponentially, man, when they, when people, that's like where the power of like the cubed, it becomes so much bigger than the individual. It becomes so much bigger than the activity. When you have these people sharing, and that's just, my book, Dear Gratitude, I had 50 people write essays in gratitude because I have my own story, but it's colors of the rainbow. You know what I mean? Like when you have more people sharing what they're grateful for, it's this collective where it just becomes someone's story is going to resonate, more voices. I kind of look at like what we do is we're like planting trees. Yeah. There's, if say the news is the one polluting all the negativity in the world, all we're doing is planting trees. All we're doing, you're a gratitude composer like myself, conductor. You're setting up the play and giving people a trigger to share what they're grateful for and to put that out in the world. And it's awesome, man.
Yeah, no, it's great. And listen, not all experiences are best shared, but a large percentage of experiences are best shared. And like I said, it brings about that connection. It brings about how we relate and identify as human beings and stuff like that. So it's important. We all like to go out and do something with someone if we can. So yeah, like I said, it invites things of that nature. And if you are out, then we just kind of the invitation is to maybe just kind of keep an open mind and mix up. If you are setting your routines and you're already going out for that run or walk without repeating yourself, then yeah, maybe you've got that time. Why not invest it in a bit of gratitude? If you don't already, and if you do, fantastic, do more of it. Like you said, share it. Why not share it? Because there's somebody out there that needs it. And you touched on a really important point a few minutes ago, just around and for me, it's all about acknowledgement, because we've kind of both suggested this is a delicate one with how you position gratitude. Sometimes it's not kind of it flies off our lips, but as a consequence of some of the stories we've got to tell, like I said, that wasn't always the case. But I suppose gratitude for me is acknowledgement. That like what we're going to do with that information. Like you said, if we are lucky enough to get out and move the way we do, we don't take that for granted. What are you going to do with that power that you've got? And it's not to say, I can move and you can't, and use it in that demeanor where it's just kind of selfish, self-seeking, and I'm okay, mate, but and you're not, and it's just like not a second thought. But let's have a bit of empathy here, and let's think, okay, I can, so I'm going to do all I can in my power to use what I've got, for the greater good, and not just using it for my own selfish needs. So for me, that's come up quite a lot lately, actually, and obviously through Run Grateful, we've got to be with our approach and messaging, for want of a better word, we have got to have that kind of subtle piece in there to suggest, we are thoughtful, about what we're inviting people to do, because it can open up a can of worms, because I spoke about it a couple of weeks ago with something that we did about, if you ask yourself the ultimate question, which you could hopefully always lean into with a positive answer, but, am I grateful for life? And you hope that more people say, well, yes, okay, well, we've spoken about starting points. Let that be your springboard for more. And but if the answer to that question is no, then obviously that opens up a deeper, bigger, wider conversation around, okay, well why not? What are you influenced by? What are your circles? What's bringing you down? What are you struggling with? What's your thoughts? What's your feelings? And then it can take you down that path, which is still a positive path to come through. Because we brought up earlier in the conversation that can lead on to brighter days. But that's the kind of that's the kind of door that gratitude can unlock. Also, so it can unlock amazing, fulfilling moments but it can also, ask, questions of us, honest questions where we might need to just dive in for a little bit and get the support we need to come out the other side and share them experiences in a grateful way and use it, to support and uplift others, So it's a big one, mate. As you know, it's a big one.
I really, I loved how you said, if you could say, if you ask somebody, again, the great thing is you're coming from such a place of peace and gratitude. You just, you're asking somebody, are you grateful for life? I love how this is so simple, right? And like, if they say, because you're looking at them and you're having a conversation, they can say no. And then you can have that deep conversation because you've shown up with no expectation other than to ask the question and be present, and then that's a really powerful, that's really powerful, man. I love that. Cause either way it goes, again, cause you've asked the question and you're being present and you're not being judgmental. You can allow somebody to say no. And then which is if somebody says no to you and you're connecting with, that's a powerful moment. They've basically opened the door for you to ask, well, why, and listen. Right. And allow them to search, because our monkey minds, we keep focusing on, I don't know who that person is, this mythological picture, but they're going to focus on things that are really bad things. But when somebody else hears that, because you're being present, you can normally there's something in there that you can point out and shine light on. I was talking with a friend, Jason, a few weeks back, and awesome guy. And he was telling me about his ups and downs, how he started his business, then COVID hit and all this, that, and this. But yet, he was talking about his relationship and how he's become like a father. He told me all these things and how his girlfriend had picked up the slack and it was all these things, but he was coming from like a really negative mindset of like, my business hasn't succeeded. And I go, man, what I heard was that you're in a loving home and relationship now. You're like, you're with somebody that sees you and wants you to be creative, and you have this like family environment you never saw. I was like, that's what I heard. You know what I mean? He's like, oh, and he didn't, because he was just weighing on, you know what I mean? Like he was just weighing on the one side, which obviously it does suck that he started this business and COVID hit, right? That does suck, but there's things that can't, you know what I mean? Like, I have a story. I was walking around New York City years back and I ran into a couple of guys, and one of them had just gotten out of jail. And we were walking around Times Square like 6 in the morning or something. And one of the guys looked, and I was talking about gratitude as I do, because I was there for gratitude events, because I got him coffee or whatever, and we were talking, and it was probably an hour later, maybe 2 hours later, because we all just kind of hung out, it was chill. And the guy looked at me and said, what do I have to be grateful for? Right. This is what he looked at me. And I, because I'd already had a conversation with him, right. I looked at him, I said, well, you're not in jail anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like, no, but it's just a straight in case point of like people getting so in their heads where they can't even like see, like, I'm not in jail anymore. It's like, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, and then that's just fact of matter, because we live in our heads so much. Right. But with somebody, that's where the great thing about gratitude is gratitude can allow you to get out of your head. It allows you to become focused and centered where you are. So for example, when someone runs, like, okay, so for example, if I go jogging 5 days a week, that's nice. I'm feeling great. But if you add gratitude, now I'm actually, you're creating a memory and a moment and a possible connection, which is, I mean, geez, it's the difference. So speaking real quick to gratitude, like, I think gratitude to me, like the highest form, I don't say it's form. The best experience in gratitude can only be with somebody else. You have to, it has to be, a conversation. It has to be me sharing the gratitude for who it is or initiating these moments, because what we're doing is we're creating an actual memory with somebody.
Yes.
And that's where you're taking this action, which can have good benefits that just normal people do. And you're saying you're creating a memory. So for instance, if I go jogging tomorrow and I'm going, okay, well, I'm just going to think I'm grateful for Mark for this idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm creating a memory of that moment in gratitude. And that's so much more powerful. Otherwise, it's like every day, right? It just becomes another, what you're doing is I'm tagging this, okay, I'm grateful for Mark, which is awesome. Because we're taking this like everyday reflection of like almost like when you drive to work, you don't see the buildings and you're saying, oh, now you're seeing the street signs.
Yeah. Nice way of putting it. Absolutely. Yeah. And it is, just to be recognized and for people, to know that you're thinking about them and you appreciate them and all that kind of stuff is huge, because, as you've alluded to, the monkey brain and, just like the prison of our own minds, whatever way you want to describe it, life can be harsh and it can feel lonely at times. So, when people do reach out, I had it earlier on at lunchtime. So we're doing this big global project with an organisation called Ocado. Don't know if you've heard about them in the US there. I know they've got a presence there, but yeah, huge. And so we're doing this big project internally with them and their staff, which with Grateful Miles across the world, and we're doing some workshops and facilitating certain aspects of it, and it's been going really, really well. And I was chatting to a guy earlier on after a workshop that we did. It was around journaling actually, and he was like, last week when I went out for my run, I thought about this certain individual that I was grateful for, and I told them, I texted them or messaged them or whatever and said, I'm really grateful for you. And they just said the response was just great, and they were just really appreciative of it, and that then sparks them to go out for a grateful mile. And I was just like, yes. I was just like, that's it. Yes, we can set the scene, and and like I said, when the invitation's there for all, but for people actually to kind of use it in them ways and kind of come to their own understanding of what it can mean, and like you mentioned, kind of that guy taking it upon himself to share that gratitude with somebody else, just took it, took it to new heights, and now they both got that memory, and no one can ever take that away. So for us, it's just like job done, on to the next one, and hopefully there's many more stories like that to experience in the future. But yeah, it's just nice when it happens because there's no better feeling,
Oh yeah, it's magic, and people like us that are all about conducting gratitude. The amazing thing is when we get together, like we understand that, like, for example, if you say you're grateful to the person and then that they've decided to take another step, it's like, it doesn't deteriorate the joy. Like it's like the pulse stays hard. If you connect to me and I connect to you and we connect to somebody else, and gratitude is like this ever flow, like this stream, or I call it gratitude stacking. So if I'm anywhere in the stack, I don't have to, it's like if we have a conversation now, or you shared this with me and if I go exercise and I think of you, like, it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like this stack, the gratitude stacking happens all the time. I just don't think people realize what's going on. And if you're anywhere in that stack and you see it happening, you realize that there's this magic that continues to go on and on and on. And these are the moments that fill your soul up. It could be hearing a story, like I said, hearing a story of somebody that you'd never met who decided to do a grateful mile, or they decided to exercise because somebody shared gratitude. Think if they just decided to go exercise because somebody shared they were grateful for them inside this premise, right? Like what action, you never know what action is going to occur, but as we are, it's like we just initiate gratitude, we share what we're grateful for, and we just know it's going to happen. We know that the magic's going to occur, and that it just ever flows,
Absolutely.
And there's more, and the more we do it, the more you're putting it out into the world. For me personally, it's like, I just want to be a catalyst for gratitude. So it's like, obviously, I want to talk with Mark. I want to talk with you anyways, right? It's cool that we can record this and share it. That's great, right? But I just want to talk with Mark. It's like, that's, we created a space for each other right now. You know what I mean? We're both creating a space for each other to talk. This is like a gratitude meeting between the two of us.
Yeah.
And the more, right before I got on here, I did an hour. I have a gratitude sobriety one. I did an hour with my mentor, Bobby, and my friend Curtis. It was a gratitude meeting. It's like, dude, we're just building into these moments. These are just habitual gratitude habits, right? And the more you connect with individuals, the stronger that is. And it just, again, I feel like I was going on a tangent there. I'm just saying, like, I just want to be a catalyst. So the cool thing about having these conversations are the more conversations we have, the more we share, we just put it out into the world. We have no attachment where it goes other than we just know it's going to do its work. Yeah. And we know how we feel. We like, you know what I mean? Like, I know how I feel right now doing this. Like, I just, you know what I mean? This is all, I don't need anything more in the conversation.
Yes.
Now, somebody sees this, it'd be awesome if somebody obviously sees this and they're like, I'm going to do a Grateful run. That'd be awesome. But it's okay if they don't, because I don't have any attachment to it. I just know, like, let's just have the conversation. Let's just create what I call gratitude art. So when someone's, you know, you doing your gratitude, your 24 hours, you were doing gratitude art. You were every hour you were creating a piece of artwork in gratitude. And I don't know what that's for. Sorry about that. You know, you were creating a piece of artwork in gratitude that you were putting out every hour through this activity. And what has it sparked? It sparked more gratitude art.
Yes. Yeah, completely. Yeah. Beyond my wildest dreams, if I'm honest. So, I've said it before, but just incredible. Yeah, what's happened, and like I said, just putting things out there into the world, and like you mentioned, really, you know, it's all similar conversation with just letting it do its work, you know, and you know that is also where life can be harsh. You know, you can put something out there, and the world says no, and you just accept it and think, okay, you know, what will be. But then sometimes, you're lucky enough to kind of, you know, do what you love, and like you mentioned, with or without Run Grateful, gratitude, I know absolutely is, you know, plays a huge part in my life and will always be the case. So this is just nice that there's opportunities now to kind of share that with others and go on a bit of a journey with it.
What speaking of, you know, the journey, like I said, I think we're very simpatico in the sense that you're defining all these other pockets. It's like you started with this idea, and then you've expanded. Like, you know, with me, I kind of see myself walking down the stream, picking up rocks and skipping them, because I'm like, what's gonna have the biggest impact in the time. And you spoke earlier briefly about getting this into schools and the young kids. Can you speak a little more to that? I was really interested when you mentioned it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of I got ahead of myself a little bit because no one really knows about that yet. So it's kind of a bit of an exclusive there. So I mean, there's some tangibles there, you know, behind the scenes for us to kind of share about in the next few days, weeks. But we've just created workshops, virtual workshops with young adults 14 to 18, only like an hour 15 minutes. So like not going too knee deep, but it's a nice time spent. You know, we share about the value of gratitude and introducing it, some tools, some tips, and obviously attaching it to the movement and going out and doing a K or a mile or whatever. So that's really interesting. We get creative as well, you know, with just finding that focus on what we can be grateful for, you know, in our lives. So that's really exciting. We're looking to do that. We're looking to do some offline workshops, you know, when the world opens up. So that'd be really interesting. So looking to go around the world doing that as well, which really excites us. We've got some primary school resources as well for kind of downloadable worksheets and lesson plans.
Wow.
Similar, all centered around gratitude and movement. So really looking forward to seeing where that goes and sharing about it and getting people to kind of take it on and download it and use it and start to plant seeds, I suppose, with the next generation about, you know, how important it is to lean into your gratitude as you go on into life and you know what life throws at you. As we all know, lots of different experiences, but you know, gratitude is always a tool there that can be used to support your efforts. You know.
Oh, for sure, and I kind of feel like, you know, gratitude can be like an anchor when you know, if you want to go as far as it goes. It could be if you feel like you're suffocating, you're in that moment, like it's allowed you to take a breath before, you know, and sometimes you just need that moment, right? So it's like teaching people younger that they can redirect their minds just momentarily to separate from whatever the heartache is. If it's, my instance, like my gratitude journey started because I wrote a letter to my mom 4 months before she passed away, you know, and when I started my first gratitude practice, it was literally because I asked myself, how can I have people experience this moment where they share gratitude for somebody and they can experience that? And I just started going to Starbucks every morning and talking and just developing a website. That was my first gratitude practice, was sharing my story and thinking, how can I initiate other people just to share what they're grateful for, and the power in that. And I think that's so amazing that, you come from this, where you do this 24 hours of sharing what you're grateful for, these miles. And then now that you're reaching out through schools and putting together programs. And I totally understand that you see the potential in all this, and like how massive it is to getting the word out. And it sounds like you're connecting so many. So it's not like great that obviously the kids are getting this, but how cool is it the people you're connecting with that are seeing the value, and then they're bringing this, it's like, I'm sure there's like 6 degrees, certain places where it's like here to here to here, this person can understand. And then next thing I know, this form's getting put in front of the kids at the school, that's freaking magical, man.
Yeah.
Think about it. There's like so many layers of gratitude, like grateful connections to get there. And then it's like, so I'm in a very similar situation right now where I'm building gratitude practice for a hospital in Georgia. So I'm right in the process of like taking my book and making it a journal. Amazing. And, I've got these gratitude stickies and got these postcards, but it's like, I'm so excited, like where you're at, because what I'm putting to play is going to be used. Like people are actually going to hand this stuff to people. Yes. How cool is that? Right. Mm-hmm. Like, it's like, that what you're making, someone's got physically now, and that's all you can hope is it can be physically hand, right? You can't have any objection to like what they're going to write, how they experience, but it's going to happen. The magic's going to occur that you put out in the world. So legacy, I feel you, man.
That's what it is. Legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is
like leaving your imprint on the world and looking back and knowing that, you've done your best, you made a difference. And like I said, there's some tangibles there that, people took on and what they do with that information is up to them. But knowing that you cracked on is a nice way to be remembered, eh?
Oh, for sure, man. For sure. Yeah. And the more, that's what's so beautiful about gratitude initiating people. It's like, it ever flows. And, another great thing is because you and I talk gratitude all the time, when we get around people, they automatically think the word gratitude.
Yeah.
They may not even be grateful, but it's like, that's the amazing thing. The more you talk about it, the more it's like known who you are. It's like you just enter the room and like like I've had conversations with people. It's like I've heard them start talking a certain way, and like I know they changed the way they were talking to like look for the good, specifically because they were talking to me.
Yeah.
It's almost like Jedi mind gratitude. It's like, it's just because you've embodied it so much. It's like but it's so exciting, right? Because like, you're in the conversation that someone, their mind is going to pivot. You're the pivot point. Yeah. Because you entered the room, that idea of like that reaching up for oxygen, like that idea of, I know it's there. Like you become the embodiment of it because you share so much and because you put so much out in the world. It's magical, man. It's just,
it's good.
Right?
Like I said, I've got a realistic approach to life. Like I said, things happen and all that, but I'm largely glass half full. Yeah. So like when people come across me or meet me or they know me and they see me, then they tend to know what they're going to get. I tend to lean into a solution-based mindset. There's always a solution to everything. So, but there might be people, depending on how they're feeling on any given day, and I don't judge this at all, but they might see me and pretend to be on the phone or, hide behind a corner because they're just like, oh, mate, I don't want to be around. I don't want to be around him in this moment because he's just going to probably tell me what I need to hear. And likewise, I've got people like that in my life where I know they're gonna kind of just put a spin on it, a positive spin, when maybe I'm not in that mindset for that day. And I just need to feel that emotion, as we mentioned, that I can't deny. But like I said, you don't. The trick is not to stay in their moments for too long, because as you mentioned, tomorrow's a new day, and gratitude will always pull you out. And it doesn't have to be like that forever, but. Yeah, I like to have a positive energy, and I like to translate that to the world as best I can. Because it was only through people sharing their positive energy towards me that gave me hope, And if they weren't there to kind of guide me and support me and share their experiences and stories with me, then I probably wouldn't be here now. That's the harsh reality. So, but I am. So I'll crack on.
Mark, I love you said it's, it takes a village type of thing, or there's some people, you were just speaking. Is there some people in your life, anybody right now comes to mind that, that was like a beacon of gratitude to you, or allowed, somebody somebody in your life that added that positive spin, or you went around to? Is there anybody you could share with us?
Oh my God, so many. As you just spoke, then it's funny how the brain works, and it's like boom, like 6, 7, 8 people sprung to mind, which is amazing because I can count those 6, 7, 8. I mean, I've got more, but that's just like I said, just off the cuff, come to mind. You've got Kev, you've got Dean, you've got Dan, you've got Matt, you've got Gary, you've got you've got Miss, obviously my family, my dad, my grand, my pops who passed. So many people that have influenced me and uplifted me, and a few people lately are more mentors, kind of just come into my life. This last year, 18 months, that have been a massive support. And like Charlie and Ben and Alvin and Ian. So yeah, mate, they just slip off, but it's nice to always have them in mind because we're not in this alone, and there are people out there, which is great because yeah, that wasn't always the case. I was a lonely little soul, mate.
I love that. You just mentioned a whole bunch of people, so I'm gonna say I was trying to remember a couple of the names. So tell me a couple of things you're grateful for Alvin.
Alvin, managed to say Alvin. I spoke to him yesterday for the first time in a few weeks. So Alvin's a guy I met. I got voted, which is very nice experience. Top 15 social entrepreneurs in the UK a couple of years ago. It was a Redbull program. Yeah, great, really good experience. They kind of took 15 of us away for a week and just kind of hyper focused on us and kind of building us up and guiding us in various aspects of entrepreneurship, etc. And Alvin was one of them guys that I met. So we've kind of stayed in touch since. We've met up when we could, and we chat often. And he's got his own social enterprise, and so he's just a nice guy. He's a young guy, and somebody that I care about now, and I want to see succeed. So yeah, Alvin's definitely kind of brought something to my life the last 18 months or so. So yeah, and it's funny, like I said, funny you mentioned him out of all of them, because I literally spoke to him yesterday, which is nice. He's been on my mind a lot the last few weeks, and we haven't really connected.
That's awesome, man. I know our hour's almost up here. I was curious if somebody, say somebody listens to this podcast and they decide to go out and do a Grateful Mile, and they want to share that story. Where would they go to send that to you? How would they go about sharing that back at your?
I mean, the go-to place, like for everything that we do, and some articles that have been written about us and things we've got coming up in the future, is rungrateful.com. So that's the kind of that's the website, and then we're on social media. Instagram, I think, lends itself more to what we're doing, and that seems like an obvious place. But the world doesn't revolve around Instagram. But so before you go out, what I do is, I just take 5 minutes or so just to kind of sit down as I'm doing my shoes up or whatever, or it depends on what the weather's like out there, whether I'm putting a hat and gloves on. But just taking a few minutes before I set off, just to kind of get rid of whatever's going on in between my ears, the day-to-day stuff, and just try and focus on that one thing, personal experience, or and just take that on my run with me, really. So, if my mind does tend to drift, I'll try and just bring it back to that gratitude that I've been thinking of before I set off. And then, you can tag us in One Grateful, the number one Grateful Run on Instagram. You can email us, and then we can kind of, we can see it, and we're looking to build this kind of web of gratitude across the website, and just on social media. So just tag us in, share it with us, or not just with us, share it with somebody else, as you've alluded to. As long as it gets shared, we're happy. Do we need to know about it all the time? Absolutely not. Do we like to hear about it all the time?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as long as you're okay, without sounding too romantic, that's fundamental. That's all we care about. So, but yeah, if you can share it and experience it with others, then there's a big invitation there to be part of something bigger than ourselves, and that's the Run Grateful community.
That's beautiful, Mark. Well, I think that's a great place to close out here, man. I really enjoyed the time. Thanks for sharing everything you're doing.
Yeah, flew past.
Oh, it sure did, man. And I hope, maybe we definitely should do another one, maybe, sometime down the road. I'm very curious to the more stories going to come out and what else you're going to, it seems like you're continuing to find different pockets and avenues, and I'm definitely want to hear about those. And now we've had a long discussion. I'd love to read some of the stuff you're talking about now that I know you've been, assimilating these gratitude tools There are
Yeah,
gratitude
no
tools.
Let's keep the
so,
conversation alive and see. Yeah, we're in each other's universe now, so I'm sure timing and all that kind of stuff, we can make some good things happen. No problem.
For sure. And I wanted to thank your assistant Liz for finding me. So I want to give some serious gratitude out to Liz.
Likewise, Liz is great.
For finding me, reaching out, and making this friendship happen. I like to make the statement that now I'm on planet Mark, where you and I would never know each other, but now it's like it's a whole other world of people and ideas, and and thank you, Liz, for somehow finding us and connecting us. So that's the beautiful thing about this web, this World Wide Web, and the possibilities of connecting with people anywhere in the world. That definitely never would have happened before, man. So, all right, man. Well, it's been great. Well, I'm Chris, Mark White, just saying stay grateful, and we are officially out.